To get started, we are going to the Layer Masks jar demo module over on Canvas. If you go under modules, this should show up for you. And you're going to first download the file at the top of this module. So it's highlighted in yellow, download this file to get started. Click here and download the file. You'll see it pop up at the bottom of your screen in your downloads folder. And once it appears, you are going to click right on the file and open it up. It's a PSD file, which stands for Photoshop document, so it should automatically launch in Photoshop. Now, what we're looking at is a picture of a mountain landscape over a picture of a glass jar. And what we want to happen is we want to merge these two together so that it looks like the landscape is captured inside of the jar in a surrealism effect. So the first thing that we're going to do is gently lower the opacity of layer 2. Opacity for a whole layer is over here in your layers panel. And as we slide this closer to 0, it's going to get more transparent. So 0% opacity would be fully transparent. It will be completely see-through and disappear. 100% opacity means that you cannot see through it. Let's lower it to about maybe somewhere in the 50s. And the reason I'm doing this is so that we can see the edges of the jar around the outside of the image. All right. Next, we are going to add a layer mask onto this layer, and a layer mask will hide parts of an image without fully erasing them. So you could always go back to the beginning if you need to. At the bottom of your layers panel, look for the icon that is rectangular with a circle punched out of the middle. It should say add layer mask or add vector mask. And when you click on it, nothing's going to happen on your screen, but over in this layers panel, you're going to see a mask has appeared. To hide something from this mask, we need to use a paintbrush and color black over anything that you don't want to see. This is going to mask it for you. So over in my toolbar, I'm going to look for the regular brush. If you hover over your tools, it's going to tell you their names. Find your brush, click on it. At the bottom, we're going to set the foreground fill to black, which it usually is by default. And then at the top of your screen, this is your options bar. It's going to give you options for the tool that you're using. We are going to lower the hardness a little bit on the brush. It will give it a little more of a soft edge like you see here. This is a hard edge brush. It looks like a perfect circle. This is a softer edge brush. It looks a little fuzzy. This is going to help us blend the areas a little bit easier. And I'm just going to make my brush a little bit larger as well. Once you have these settings, you can zoom in and use your paintbrush to color over all of the mountain picture that leaves the jar. So I'm going to color over the thumb here. And it looks like I'm erasing it, but remember, you're not using an eraser. We're using a different tool. And that way, if I were to delete the layer mask, I can go all the way back to the original photo. This is a great way to ensure that you're not destroying any parts of your original photos. And it's a super helpful step if you realize that you have to go back to the beginning. You can do that. Gives you a lot of control over what you're editing. All right. So I'm just taking my time. Remember, just go right around the jar. You can make your brush smaller if you need to as you're working. You can adjust the hardness or softness if you feel like it needs to go in either direction. All right, so if I zoom out a little, zoom out is Command minus, zoom in is Command plus on your keyboard. So it's looking pretty good. All right, what we want to do next is bring the opacity of our layer back up, maybe not to 100%, but a little bit more so that we can see the image more clearly. So maybe somewhere in the 80s. And then we can continue touching up this image to kind of blend it into the jar better. It still looks like it's pasted over. So what I'm going to do is return to my layer mask, maybe make my brush a little bit larger. I'm going to push the hardness down to give it a super fuzzy edge. And then we can also change the opacity of the brush that we're using. So by lowering this, it makes your brush a little more transparent, and you have the ability to kind of soften the edges of this so that it blends into the jar If you were holding a jar in real life, you would see a little bit of the glass reflecting the objects around it. I'm even going to lower the opacity some more. There we go. You can see it's definitely giving it a softer look. If you were also holding a glass jar, you'd be able to see this finger through it. And just a little bit at a time, I'm going to touch it up. Just really around the edges. You don't need to do too much more. All right. And with just a little bit of work with the layer mask, you can start to easily blend your pictures together. Just to show you, if I were to disable my layer mask over here, it goes all the way back to the original photo. Notice nothing is erased. No parts of your picture should be disappearing. It's just hiding what you don't want to see. All right, next step, we are going to bring in a picture of birds and mask them so that they look like they're flying out of the jar, and that will complete our little landscape. So let's head over to Safari. I'm going to look up a flock of birds. Try to find a picture that's on a blank background or a background that is a solid color. It's going to make your editing a little easier. So maybe I'll do this one. I'm going to right click on this, copy image, return to Photoshop, and press Command V, as in vacuum. Now, this is going to look like it's just pasted on, so we want to remove the background by using the magic wand tool. If you don't see your magic wand tool, it's probably hidden underneath the object selection tool. It should be fourth icon down in your toolbar. Click and hold that object selection tool if that's what you see in your toolbar, and you'll find the magic wand. With one click on the sky, you can see this is selecting all the space around the birds and the little moon that's here. And I'm just going to press delete on my keyboard, and it deletes all of that sky that was in the original picture. I don't want this little moon here, so I think I might actually just quickly erase this. We're not going to have to return to the background in this picture. So with my move tool, that's the top tool in your toolbar, I'm going to drop the birds right around here. I think it'll look better if I rotate them. So I'm going to press Command T. And if you hover your cursor near a corner, you'll see a little curved arrow appears right there. I'm going to drag these and flip them around so that they look like they are flying out of the jar. Make them a little bit bigger. All right, and then, once again, it looks a little pasted over, so I'm going to quickly add a layer mask. I'm going to use a soft edge, low opacity brush. I'm just going to go over the birds that would be behind the mouth of the jar. So just a couple clicks to fade them out slightly. All right, and there you go. Just a couple different ways that we can use layer masks to blend images together.